What's up YouTube, Framinthor here, and as you know, I love to shit on anything that has to do with WoW Classic. Wrath, TBC, Vanilla. If I can shit on it, I'ma do it. So, we have a video by WillE. WillE is a massive Classic Andy. He loves Classic more than he loves his mom. Actually, I don't know, I'm just messing around. He probably doesn't love Classic more than he loves WoW, his mom, but Classic is his favorite WoW of choice for some odd reason. And he made a video about how one of Classic WoW's last balanced servers fell, whatever that means. Now, before we do that, we always gotta go a bit through the comment section. So, I don't think the server consolidation is a drastic move, really. The ones they're consolidating are literally dead. I logged into my old vanilla tune on Rattlegore to see what the status was before taking the free transfer, and I was, not joking, the only Horde player online. It will have little to no impact on the player base, it's more just consolidating waste server resources. You forgot to mention that Firemode abused a loophole where you didn't incur a transfer cooldown when using a free character transfer, so they hopped over to Rattlegore and then again to Gehennis, all for free. One thing that would help a little bit is to connect all the three auction house, Horde, Alliance, and Goblin. At least if you are on the smaller faction, you still get the Matsi. Love it! Dead Classic servers? Yes! Feel me! Feel me! Dead Classic servers, let's go! You think you do, but you don't. Let's see what the video is about.
Always been an ethereal and difficult to achieve goal within World of Warcraft.
What is?
Faction balance has
faction
always
balance,
been
okay.
an ethereal and difficult to achieve goal within World of Warcraft.
It's not difficult to achieve, it's practically impossible because it's player generated and the devs can't really do much about it. If the players want to stack Horde on the server and eventually the Alliance start leaving, there's not much the devs can do about it. It's not like they are the ones balancing it out. What they should do is have an Alliance server and a Horde server share shards at like random intervals, and then it's like you go to a place and then suddenly you have like an opposing server against you or some shit like that.
Warcraft, and for nearly 2 decades has been a core part of the game's fantasy. Horde versus...
Has it really though? Outside of Classic, in TBC, was it really though? Last I checked, the Horde also saves Maiev and fights Illidan with Maiev. Last I checked, in Warcraft 3, your main in Wrath of the Lich King, you're not much into the faction war. Sometimes there's like a little bit of like Winter Grasp, sure, but like for the most part, you know, it's like every expansion's less and less. Everyone was in Dalaran, both Horde and Alliance. Everyone was in Shattrath, both Horde and Alliance. So clearly, not so much about the faction fighting game that people claim that it was.
Alliance. 2 factions, 2 sides, and a never-ending series of back-and-forth conflicts. Over the years, though, more often than not, players have found themselves witnessing their faction leaders working together, and story-wise, both sides putting differences aside to address a greater evil.
Oh, you mean like Wrath of the Lich King, like TBC? It's just like, it was like the starting phase. Like in TBC, you can see it already happening. Not as much, obviously. TBC is like when it just started happening, but Wrath of the Lich King, you could really see it happening inside of Dalaran, right? Eventually, like, you know, it didn't happen, but it's like you saw that Thrall and Varian were not very aggro towards each other. It was mostly Varian and what's his name, Garrosh, and everyone knows how the story with Garrosh ended. So outside of Garrosh causing trouble, everyone else was kind of like, they were like not friendly terms, but they weren't really aggro, like as far as the faction goes. Like the whole Ulduar cinematic, when Thrall and Garrosh go into the meeting, and inside it's Jaina and Varian, but Thrall and Jaina are besties anyway, so it's like, you know, it's awkward. But Garrosh is fucking crazy aggro. So outside of Garrosh, no one was really aggro about like the opposite team. Alright, Cataclysm, everyone was working together. You had Orc Jesus, he was both sides. He was like non-aggro for Lance, non-aggro for Horde, really. And then what? Mists, it was everyone against Garrosh. Legion, WoD was like not really aggro, like it was everyone for their own world. So like it's not really like outside of TBC. In TBC you can already see the changes that lead to like less aggro between the factions, and every expansion is less and less and less. So to say that there was like massive faction war and whatever, I would say it pretty much stopped in Wrath.
Lich King himself during his named expansion, Deathwing the Destroyer in Cataclysm, Garrosh Hellscream's True Horde during Mists of Pandaria, and so many more. During Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard reimagined servers from either PvE or PvP to instead just normal or RP. A new PvP mode known as War Mode was introduced. This could be toggled on or off at your faction capital, and whilst you had it on in the open world, it was like playing on old PvP servers. However, with additional...
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. In all PvP servers, you wouldn't have people forming actual raid groups to finish a weekly and then never PvP again. It's not even close. You would have literally like a 10-man raid group doing a world quest and killing anything in sight. Just because people queued into war mode alone like fucking idiots. It was nothing like old PvP realms. It's like the people who queued in were doing it with a group. There were like a very small minority that were doing it solo.
PvP specific talents activated, as well as boost to experience and reputation. It was all about adding some risk and reward. And in the final major content patch of the Shadowlands 9.25, differences are finally being cast aside permanently as Blizzard implement cross-faction play for certain
as there should be,
changing the direction of the two factions forever. Before we go on though, I want to talk about food buffs.
I really hope he's not going to defend that the faction war should keep going. Like, bro, there's absolutely no reason in this game, especially when so many people left, to keep the faction war going. There's absolutely no reason. It's super inconvenient for PvE and for PvP.
No, not in game. I'm talking about getting well fed in real life. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal prep kit. No more meal planning, grocery trips, and worrying about an empty cupboard. HelloFresh delivers everything you need to prepare wholesome, delicious meals right to your door. Get straight down to what you need to be doing by making cooking a fun and engaging experience. HelloFresh cuts down on time in the kitchen with meals ready in around 30 minutes, or in some cases, less. With a wide range of...
I hate that meals take 30 minutes to make, but you eat them in like 2 minutes. That's why I hate cooking. Literally, that's the main reason I hate cooking. It takes too long to make in order to enjoy it, you know.
Recipes. HelloFresh can help you with your health goals without sacrificing on flavor, which in my experience certainly matters on the longer term commitments. HelloFresh gives you the pre-proportioned ingredients you need to make awesome meals with less prep and less wasted food. It's worth at least trying for so many different life skill reasons. It teaches you how to, you know, cook stuff and have it coming out naturally tasting nice. It's a live lesson on what foods are great when you put them together. It gets you using realistic portion sizes instead of going to cook hungry, putting what you think is a bit of pasta into the pan, and it comes out being enough for a small family when it's done. HelloFresh as a meal prep kit is genuinely worth a go if you find yourself over-ordering, wanting to swap to a better diet, or just to spend less time cooking and getting better results. Use my link or go to hellofresh.com and use code
It's still expensive as hell. It's still expensive as hell compared to like what buying that food would, but I would say doing a month or two of HelloFresh to kind of like understand proportions and get the recipes, and then just buy your own shit after you like it. I think that's probably like a good idea if you're really like don't want to cook, don't know how to cook and stuff like that. I think subscribe, do the HelloFresh for like a month or two, get a few recipes that you enjoy and just cook that for a while.
16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 surprise gifts. Once you click, my description will live update to count up the purchases, so go check it out like it's your Dalaran Cooking Dailies. Thank you to HelloFresh for the sponsor.
Dalaran Cooking Dailies.
Back over in Classic, well, we are certainly a few years off of that happening. In fact, in many ways, we are seeing similar trends repeat themselves, however, at an even faster pace than they did in retail. Players are a lot more savvy nowadays to important factors that make a server work or fail. The faction representation, the total population, and of course, server type. We still do have the old school PvP servers. Yeah. Well, I call them PvP servers, but as we will see, that's not really why people are choosing to play there. Now, I have to add here, for the information we'll look at, we don't have the full picture as to the population and a really accurate faction rep.
You only join a PvP server for towards the winning faction. If there's a faction that's like 75%, let's say Horde, and 25% Lance, you are joining that server to be Horde because you're on the winning faction. Like, straight up, that's why you're joining. You want to demolish other people. No one wants fair PvP. People just want to demolish the enemy.
Representation across servers, and we never will because Blizzard holds that information. What we do have though is fairly good ways of predicting how things look. One of these tools is a site called Ironforge.pro. It tracks the number of players participating in Arena each week, as well as the number of characters who have appeared on Warcraft Logs, a site that tracks raid performance. This means the data is representative of the end game player base much more so than the levelers, gatherers, or just, well, more casual players who don't do group content outside of dungeons, really. All the same, I think it's been a valuable tool to assist players in making decisions on where to play, as well as tracking how things are looking overall. Because that overall number, the one at the top, has never been too bad. As of today,
272,000 people. Okay.
There's a few % more Horde than Alliance, and it's always been within that small margin overall. In Classic, there was a higher proportion of Alliance players, and now that's taken a shift to Horde in TBC, and racials and everything.
Because now you have Paladins on the Horde. As much as like, look, I'm a Paladin, so it's like I'm gonna blame the Paladins, but let's be real. It's probably the Paladin Blood Elf difference. I'm just saying.
Else aside, I'm convinced Blood Elves and Horde Paladins are the single largest contributor to this by a huge margin. Yet the more we peel back the layers and begin to look at more relevant numbers as to how things are, well, it just looks worse and worse. If we look at only PvE servers, some 65% of the player base is Alliance. That's not such a small margin after all. But hey, that's PvE, it doesn't matter as much, right? Well, sure, so let's look at PvP then. And, not so good either. Overall, about 60% Horde, 40% Alliance.
I mean, that's not that bad. 60-40.
World, for every 2 Alliance players you would encounter, you should expect there to be 3 Horde on average. But no, in reality, it's worse than this, because on an individual basis for each server, which is what really matters when we're breaking down these numbers, from the data we can see, the vast majority of PvP servers fall outside of the 60-40 margin. In fact, most of the large servers in the world only have one relevant faction on them.
Always,
Players have sorted themselves into environments where they will not experience any semblance of faction balance at all.
So why would them?
King, you should very much expect.
Why would them? They do not want to have it balanced. No one wants balance. People just want to dominate other people, man. You wanna have the highest chance that if you gank someone in the world and you fuck up and they have a chance to kill you, you have a much better chance of finding an ally that will help you kill them than them having finding an ally to help them kill you. That's how it is.
Expect this trend to continue, because when the scales begin to tip, when a faction gains that noticeable foothold and advantage over the other one, it's only a matter of time before the other half leaves for good. Over time, Blizzard has tried to incentivize players to move to servers that would balance things out more through character migrations, but it's never really worked out. After all, who would choose to move to a...
The only time you would do this is if you're a full-on guild that just wants to do world PvP and shit, and you just gather around your peeps, you all transfer to a server, which is like your alliance, you transfer to a Horde server, and just go and just start ganking Horde mini groups. Eventually you will be hunted down, but until then, You have a good time.
Server that could also just die off in a few months' time. Blizzard would have to quite literally force move players to make any difference, and with Wrath of the Lich King, they will be doing that. It was announced a short while ago, Blizzard will be closing off loads of the very low population classic realms and moving the leftover players to more active servers instead. They have never done this in the history of World of Warcraft existing.
Yeah, they're force moving.
It's a drastic step to address players feeling as though they have to be on a large server. Drastic as it is, however, it's not really affecting that many people overall. But speaking of large servers, we have what is the real subject for today's video, Biomore. Firemode, the server that is. It's been through one hell of a journey. At the start of the Burning Crusade, it had a decent population, pretty close to 50-50 with more Horde overall, and a raiding cap of around 10,000 players. In January of 2022, the server saw a huge volume of transfers on both sides of the Horde and the Alliance. Guilds tend to organise mass server swaps on a certain date from their current server, where they feel things are going poorly, to a much larger one. And with the popularity of Discord and guildmasters generally talking to each other about things like this, it doesn't take many people to convince potentially hundreds that they're being swept up and off to another server if they wish to remain with the guild. And mostly these transfers aren't just on a whim either. You scroll down Ironforge.pro and there is an absolute graveyard of servers that are due to be closed soon.
Dead.
Remember, on Classic there's no sharding, no cross-faction, no cross-server tech.
Wasn't there sharding in Classic, or was that only for the first few weeks in Classic to make people are able to get quests done and shit?
Your server is all you have in order to find other players to play with. And as per available data, Firemore's raiding and PvP population ballooned from some 22,000 at the end of December 2021 to an insane 35,000 by the end of January 2022. It had taken the server from huge to the largest server in the world within the space of 1 month. Though interestingly, at this point in time, the server was still gaining players on both the Horde and Alliance. Usually it's one way or the other, and Firemore continued to grow as TBC progressed, seemingly infinitely, even to the point of seeing dreaded queues make a reappearance during summer. Yes, for Firemore they didn't have to wait until Wrath content is out before they got queues again. The server just got way too full. On the 23rd of May, Blizzard finally took action. At some point they had to do something, and this was it. Biomore was locked. This means that transfers were closed, and unless you already had a character on the server, you were unable to make a new one. The results of this were pretty instantaneous. Week on week, several thousand less players were being actively tracked on Ironforge.pro. From the date of the server lock to 6
there
weeks
goes the
later,
Horde.
some 11,000 less players were found as actively logging in and playing. While the lock had certainly had the intended result,
Bro, look at that drop though.
as
Where is
actively
it?
logging in and
Look at that, from basically 6,000 difference to probably like 12,000 difference right away. Like all the Horde just left together in one go. It's crazy. In like a month, right? That's pretty much what. No, it's even like 2 weeks, is it? Jesus Christ.
playing. While the lock had certainly had the intended result, the server wasn't growing anymore. In fact, the opposite was happening. The population was now dropping at an alarming rate. Though it wasn't just through the lack of new players, people were finally leaving Firemore. This is what Blizzard have been trying to get people to do forever with their actions in regards to servers. Success then? Not quite. See, despite Firemore being huge and relatively well balanced for its size, Alliance had had the numbers advantage for some time. And this server lock had been an unintended catalyst for a side effect. The faction minority exodus. Horde began to finally take advantage of the free character migrations away from this mega server to a smaller server perhaps. A place where the Horde needed a few more players to really push a 50-50 balance? No, of course not. Don't be silly. The majority of them went straight to Gehenna. The largest by far Horde-dominated server in Europe, which as of a recent reset had about 20...
It's like, man, flying killed world PvP, man. Why do they keep adding world PvP? Why do they keep adding flying, man? It killed world PvP, bro. No one wants world PvP except people who can dominate other people. It's so dumb, bro. WoW killed world PvP, bro. The player base killed world PvP. They never wanted world PvP. They think they do, but they don't.
20,000 Horde players log, and some 69
Oh,
Alliance.
goes.
Ironforge
Hey, Alliance, you better not leave. Stay 69.
Pro shows the full extent of how many players left during a 1 week period, and even I'm surprised at this.
So that's
it
what
feels
happened
like
there.
The people left on Firemode didn't get the memo. This is an Alliance server now. Between the 6th and the 13th of July, Biomore lost about 8,000 active raiding characters. That's like saying 320 25-man raiding groups have left the server, and the majority have gone straight to a server where there's only Horde players. During the same time frame, which was only a week mind you, Gehenna gained 6,000 new active raiders. In fact, so many players have moved from Firemore to Gehenna that Blizzard had to close free character transfers to
Now that we're in the Gehenna's realm from becoming overpopular, we will soon close all free transfers to Gehenna's. We expect to implement this closure later this week in no less than 24 hours from the time of this
stop the never-ending tide of new people who are finally escaping their locked server. As of July 19th, Blizzard have finally announced that Firemore will be reopened for transfers and new characters. The aftermath of the server lock has lost Firemore about half of its concurrent player base and completely removed
who would join there
from the server. I mean, take a look at the bulletin board add-on for Horde here. This add-on combines messages from all chat channels and aims to help players find groups and services. This is not what a healthy server looks like on this add-on. Here's Firemore Alliance, just for comparison, by the way. So, the server lock, it kind of worked in that it reduced the number of people playing on Firemore, but it kind of didn't because it encouraged the Horde to transfer to another server. Back in January of 2022, the Classic Community Council made a forum post about
Classic Community Council. Oh my god. Figured I'd open discussion here, and as I see it talked about a lot recently. Currently, TBC servers are in a somewhat state of disarray. I know balancing PvP servers has and always will be tricky, especially given that most issues are player-driven. Yep. Bro, players don't want to be in a balanced server. Like, stop forcing it. Like, players don't want to do it. Throughout Classic, we saw it. One server faction gets bigger than the other, and if it becomes the dominant faction, players on the weaker faction decide they can't take it anymore and want to actually participate in the world. When transfers opened up at first, it basically killed off certain servers that were once thriving at their peaks. Incendius comes to mind. And almost completely killed off after a wave of transfers. Now part of this transfer was due to overpopulation and attempting to recreate the server identity by limiting layers to 1. Though the growing sentiment in this particular case was that the world environment had grown too toxic to warrant wanting to stay with free transfers available. In this case, I was part of this transfer off of Incendius and onto Netherwind. Horde and ally from Incendius fled to Earth Fury and Netherwind back around Phase 4 of Classic. Throughout Classic, we saw the ebb and flow of server transfers affect realms to the point of complete lopsided factions, even sometimes on non-PvP realms like Pagel. Now with TBC about 6 months after launch, we are experiencing a massive wave after wave of transfers fleeing servers that have become undesirable. This has led to a significant amount of once thriving servers to be completely dead, with over 25 servers completely dead in terms of PvP and PvE rankings. Each one with their own main reasoning, but each one has similar traits. Your guild is leaving because of X reason, usually faction imbalance related. You are forced to leave with them to play with a whole new group of people, or play with potentially no one because 90% of the server is leaving. You leave to a server that's already either closed in the faction balance, favored towards your faction, or one that's already lopsided towards one faction. Add the fact that some people are paying hundreds of dollars just to move many characters. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but it certainly doesn't feel like these 25 servers died off because the population just isn't there. WoW Classic has been thriving more and more as new content comes out.
Action balance in classic World of Warcraft.
Evidenced by WCL.
On all fronts in detail as to thoughts from Blizzard's point of view, saying things such as free character migrations have been attempted on many counts as relief valves, but often players didn't want to go to the locations offered with justifiable concerns they would just have the same experience as their current server. Merging for Blizzard didn't make sense. In fact, it's never been done for any version of World of Warcraft. They assume if servers are the way they are, and that's an environment that's been built by players, why would you force them to change it? Would they?
Big agree. Big agree. players don't want to play with other players in PvP, fuck them. They don't. They clearly don't. They only want to do it when they're on the massively winning side. That's how it is. If Horde is always ganking the Alliance, you want to be on that server as a Horde. If Alliance is ganking the Horde, you want to be on the server as Alliance. And if you're not, you're gonna leave us on the first train out. Like, that's how it is.
They consider incentivizing people playing on low population servers? If so, how? Would they consider capping factions perhaps? Well, they said it would limit player choice way too much given how we know servers tend to end up. How about free transfers but for one specific faction, which is becoming problematic? In this regard, he says it's fairly conclusive that players do not take advantage of free character migrations or paid transfers to move to the underdog faction. It's just not something that happens to a degree to move the needle in a positive direction. And offering that move as the only option that players have for free transfers is likely not going to be positively received by players who are unhappy with their current realm. What about cross-realm play then? Is this just the endgame for World of Warcraft servers? For this he says, what if it was restricted to only people on your friends list or in the same community as you? What if this only worked in instance content? These are a few things that might be cool to explore. It's definitely worth talking about more, but this is something we'd really have to think long and hard about. Perhaps most interestingly, he says, overall the data we have suggests that players don't seem to want an even playing field or they care more about having their faction be heavily populated and lively than they care about their realm being balanced. It really is quite a complicated system. Take Firemore for instance. Blizzard does nothing. The population over triples from the start of TBC. They take action and nearly half of the player base goes and one faction entirely leaves. In many ways, this kind of feels like the retail faction balance conversation all over again. By the way, despite having cross-server play for years, retail realms are by no means balanced either.
Oh no, they're not. But you don't need them to be balanced in retail because all servers are technically PvE and PvP. You don't really need a balance there. If you want to use the war mode, you use it, and if you don't, you don't. Is it the best system? I don't know, but I prefer it that way because fuck it, why not? Also, you have a lot of merged servers already. Like Zul'jin is like, I think 4 servers or some shit. Illidan's like one of the only servers that hasn't been merged. Right? So, and like that server is like really thriving, but it's also extremely Horde heavy. Almost all the servers, I think there's only 2 retail servers that are like balanced-ish. Like 50-50, 60-40, something like that. All the other servers are either Horde or they're Alliance. And it's player choice to do that.
To be done by players from the same server, and the auction house is still a thing too. Nevertheless, balance was an active talking point for years and years, with Blizzard saying, we're talking about it, we're aware, we're thinking about it, we're considering our options, and all that time the solution was the drastic step that everybody knew would really solve things, but it felt as though it couldn't be justified until it was, and that was cross-faction play. In Classic, it's similarly been a day one talking point. Blizzard are trying to fix things, they're aware of the problem, but what's our obvious solution that we all know would fix things? Surely not sharding and cross-server play. We have seen firsthand with retail, it doesn't work out long-term still. Players seem to just want big servers with one faction on them. Should there only be a handful of mega servers per region with a huge amount of layering? What about the war mode model instead of PvP and PvE servers? Is that what Classic is missing? But the ball is...
I don't think it is. I don't think it's missing war mode. I don't think war mode as a whole fixed anything. It just gave people option to just get a bit more, but all a war mode really did was make people fucking group up together to gank on other people who are trying to just use the advantage of the war mode. The funny thing is, with the XP and gold, or like, sorry, XP and rep boost, it was still worth it to go war mode up until you get killed. You get killed, you get off war mode for a bit, you do a few, like, you go to a different zone, then you try war mode again, you know, stuff like that.
In Blizzard's court to make a decision if anything will truly change, because player trends won't. And Blizzard can make the difference. Firemore has shown that even the largest server in the world isn't immune to drastic change when Blizzard takes action. As of today, despite overall faction balance standing within a few % of each other across all tracked servers, only 5 of those servers are within a 5% faction balance average between the Horde and the Alliance. But hey, there's the Wrath Classic Fresh servers.
Yeah, because Classic wasn't fresh when all the balance just went to shit, right?
Will be different this time. I mean, Blizzard hopes so. There totally won't be one Horde server and one Alliance server. Surely it won't happen again. One of the big reasons a lot
Surely
of
it
people
won't
came back
happen,
to World
yeah.
of Warcraft and rolled a PvP server back at the start of Classic was for the open world, for the conflicts and for PvP experiences that you can no longer find in retail. And we didn't even have to wait for flying for that illusion to be shattered. In reality, things have followed the same path as retail.
Bro,
but at an
that's what I'm
even
saying, though. That's what I'm saying. You did, like, flying is not what killed World PvP. World PvP killed World PvP. As soon as BGs came out, people stopped World PvPing unless they were griefing, right? It's just not fun unless you're in a massive group, like, gaking people. And honestly, even that is not fun. Imagine you're just, like, running around, just one-shotting people. It's like, it can be fun for, like, 5 minutes, and then it's like, bro, like, I'm tired of running in circles looking for people just to kill them.
faster rate. If you're new or returning
good.
from Wrath of the Lich King, this is kind of how things are now. I
Yep.
would use the site Ironforge.pro to get a good impression of where people are playing. It will also let you know whether your server is dead without you having to pay to log in and find out yourself. Overall,
Fair.
when it comes to any semblance of faction balance, it feels like all the solutions aren't working. Maybe there just isn't one. Maybe having static servers with 2 factions just
Okay, here's the solution. You can it's not, instead of like having max amount of players, you can only have max amount of faction players. So for example, server limit is 20,000, 10,000 Alliance, 10,000 Horde. You cannot have more than 10,000 Horde, you cannot have more than 10,000 Alliance. You can have less, but never more. And then it would basically force it to a 50-50. So then people cannot transfer to that server, and even if they could, it's only to fill up to the 10,000. You would never get a point where there's on one server 20,000 or like 18,000 of just the one faction. You would avoid that by making a max on the faction. So even if you, let's say there's 10,000 Alliance, there's like on 9,500 Horde, if you go on that server, the Alliance characters will be grayed out. You will not be able to pick them because the server is full for Alliance until the next update cycle or whatever it takes. Like only every Tuesday you can see if you can make an Alliance or Horde character, but you can never make more than 10,000 in total.
doesn't work
There
as
you
a
go.
good long-term format for an MMORPG. But if
That would be
Classic
the
is to be
only
different-
thing that I can say that can actually help with the balance. But here's the thing, I don't think people want that either. People do not want to be on a balanced server for the most part. Most people just want to be on a dominant server because then they get to do all the shit they want. Though, that being said, I still believe PvE content should be across factions. All of the conflicts that you have in PvE that are like basically they're story-wise, it doesn't matter if you're Horde or Alliance. The only problem is ICC would be a problem making it both Horde and Alliance like mix, only because of the third boss, the flagship battle. I was like, I don't know if that would work if you have both Horde and Alliance on the same team. But overall, I would say that is probably your only go-to when it comes to like raiding. Honestly, all of Wrath of the Lich King, you can't have the opposite faction because there was a massive like it was problematic throughout the expansion. Like you had the Crusader tournament, you had the ICC third boss, right? Everyone was like it was as if it was like an arms race to see who would kill the Wrath of the Lich King. If you think about it makes absolutely no sense. Imagine the Horde and Alliance are fighting each other inside ICC to see which one, like, weaken each other to go to see which one of them is going to kill the Lich King. Like, bro, can you imagine, like, you're in a situation, there's a massive evil in the world, and you want to go and kill it, and you're, you know, like, you're the US, and you're going to fight China, and then Russia is also there, and they also want to fight China, but because Russia and the US don't really get along, they fight each other before they fight China, weaken each other, and then it's like, bro, China has just a better chance. Like, if you think about it that way, it's like, it really makes no sense for them to fight in ICC, right? It's just like, how dumb are the faction leaders to do that?
different from retail, it has to do things differently from retail, all while sticking to those design pillars that they went over not too long ago. And honestly, I've no idea what they could realistically do. And I'd usually try and propose my own ideas here, but I've really nothing that either hasn't already been suggested a million times over, or completely breaks the whole nurture and protect social experiences aspect of the game. So I guess let me know below if you've been affected by any server problems, felt the need to transfer. Also, if you have any idea of what could be done to improve things in the game, drop that down below as well. That's about everything from me today though. As always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.
Again, yeah, I think the only solution would be to like limit the amount of faction characters you can make per server. I don't think there's much more you can do about that. If you're maxing out at 20,000 and you're letting but there's no faction limit, you can easily end up with like 18,000 Horde, and then it's like even if Alliance want to join that server to fight back, they can't reach more than 2,000 players, right? So it's like you might as well just like cap how many per faction if that's an option for the developers to do. But yeah, I don't see any other real solution to this. I honestly, personally, I don't think players want a solution to this, but if there is a solution, I would say that is probably the most probable solution you can go with. Either way, I don't know. Yeah, that's the video. WillE, actually, I didn't argue with WillE at all. I did have a good laugh about the situation because Classic is a bad game, and I don't mind if it gets shut down, but this wasn't what it's about, and yeah, I'm a bit disappointed. I wanted a bit of drama. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm happy things are not all sunshine and rainbows in Classic. Yes, I'm malicious like that. Get fucked. Fucking please. Okay, anyways, yeah, that's the video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.